We are live. Yay. Something a little more whimsical today to lighten up the mood around here. Wife and I were organizing our day. I have a project in the backyard. It's out in the sun. And she needed to go to the farmer's market on her bicycle. So we geared up for the day and jokingly we mentioned that it's it's like girding for battle. Okay, what kind of clothes you're going to wear, hats, sunscreen, all this kind of stuff. So and I was joking, yeah, well, this is life above ground, right? This is where we're headed now with global heating, climate change, the destruction of the ozone layer, the loss of the aerosol masking effect, heat waves, crushing heat waves, increases in noxious air pollutants, things like that caused by heat and things like that. So we were joking about it, but it's really not a joking matter. It's kind of like lighthearted. I mean, make a joke out of it, but it's reality. So several times on this channel, when I'm talking about this shit and I'm losing my mind and I'm trying to tell people what it's going to be like in the future, I mentioned things like we're going to be living below ground. We will. We're going to be growing food below ground. I'm not sure how we'll do that, but we'll figure that out. Or we won't, right? We won't figure it out. And then well, guess what? We won't have food. And that when you want to go up on the surface, however far that is, you'll have to wear basically a spacesuit. I mean, I've said that many times on here. And I've never really explained what it means. I think people probably get it. What it means is that the surface of the Earth becomes a hostile environment, like the surface of the planet Mars is a hostile environment. Uh, you can walk around on Mars if you want to, but you have to have a spacesuit or an environmental suit if you rather, because you're not really out in space, right? We all know what space is. Space is the vacuum of space, way up high, but here on the surface, we don't think about wearing spacesuits on the surface. But we're headed there. Okay, we're going there. We are definitely going there. We are 100% going there. But let's not call them spacesuits. That's something we all understand. But let's go ahead and let's go ahead and get serious about this. Let's have a serious discussion about life above ground. It's going to sound science fiction-y. It's even going to sound like 1960s golden age science fiction, right? These days, science fiction is zombie apocalypse and nuclear apocalypse and whatnot. But just setting all that aside, life above ground is going to become challenging, veering into impossible. Challenging, and then it becomes impossible. That's what we mean when we say uninhabitable Earth. You just have to start internalizing this. What does uninhabitable Earth mean? It means it cannot be inhabited. That mean, but with the caveat that there is no natural habitat for humans. If we can create and maintain, very important. If we can create, which means invent, because right now we don't have anything. If we can invent, build, and maintain non-surface habitat. I don't want to say underground, although that's implied. So we'll go with that for now. If the surface of the Earth becomes uninhabitable, then we have to have non-surface habitat. Oh, by the way, I can think of one more habitat that's a non-surface habitat. I'll get to that later. Oh, three. Actually, I can think of three non-surface habitats that would qualify. I'll name them right now because I may forget. I tend to lose the thread. One of them is to live below ground. Actually, below ground. Not very far below ground, by the way. You could have a conventionally built above ground house and cover the walls with dirt and the top with dirt, and provided that it's built for that kind of loading, then you're below ground, and that works. Dirt is a really good insulator if you get enough of it. Dirt houses, what they call sod houses, were really common in the prairie where you didn't have building materials back in the day, the 1800s. And I could certainly see that making a comeback now. If we start getting more and more violent tornadoes and more violent hurricanes, then being above ground is just hazardous. It's just not a good idea. And if you could have a house that's either below ground a little bit or is, you know, built up with dirt, then your survival options may increase dramatically. So that's one type of non-surface habitat is a home habitat that's either covered with earth or below earth. Uh, the former requires no digging to speak of, and the latter requires quite a bit. Although, honestly, you could split the difference. You could dig down halfway, take the dirt, and use it to cover the rest, right? So you kind of split the difference. Another type of non-surface habitat would be in the oceans. Hey, why not? So we might even be farming the oceans at that point. I don't think so. I don't think there's going to be life in the oceans. I'm speaking as a biologist, not as a fiction writer. I don't think there's going to be life in the oceans. I think the life in the oceans is essentially doomed. And I'm not the only one thinking it. There's lots of oceanographers and aquatic biologists who are looking at the options for life in water and just not seeing a future for that. Scenarios like, yeah, sure, there'll be life in the ocean, the same amount of biomass that you can find in the ocean today, but it'll all be like two or three species, right? Two or three species like jellyfish, huge, massive jellyfish, maybe some toxic cyanobacterium, uh, blue-green bacteria, whatever, a couple of things. But the environment is going to be just really noxious and toxic. Some of these algal species that do really well in hot water and toxic water create their own toxins, and they can make the water poisonous to animals, organisms with nervous systems. So yeah, but why would you build in the sea? Why would you have a subsurface again? Why would you have a subsurface habitat in the sea? A lot of good reasons. I'm glad I brought this up. I haven't even thought about these things. So when I bring them up, I have to think about it, and just you see how fast I think about things. Why would you want a sea or subsea habitat? One, the ocean temperature is kind of constant. It isn't constant right now; it's increasing. But compared to the land, the temperature swings on land are somewhat buffered by the water itself. Water has what we call a huge specific heat. Look it up. Has a huge specific heat. It can absorb a lot of heat. It can let a lot of heat off, and the temperature of the water doesn't change much for all of that. So the presence of being in water buffers the temperature. It may be constantly increasing, and we are seeing that right now with global heating, also increasing the heat of the oceans. But the buffering is always going to be there, even if the temperature is really high. It's still going to be buffered against the daily swings that the land and the air is going to experience. So you might create your habitat out at sea just to have the buffering essentially of the water itself. And then the other thing is, if you had a habitat at sea, and by the way, I'm not talking about where your food and water comes from. I'm just talking about the presence of the habitat, your home. Okay, the equation is always the same: food, clothing, shelter, shelter, shelter. I'm just talking about shelter. Food and clothing, another issue. I'm really not talking about that today. I'm talking about habitat, where you can live, where you can inhabit, where you can habitate, habitat. The ocean has the advantage, or really any waterway, the Great Lakes, big rivers, provided they don't go dry. Aquatic habitat has the advantage of having depth. You can go underwater. You can go underwater. So, like a submarine, right? You can go underwater, and you don't have to go real deep to get the benefits of being underwater. You just want to get away from the surface. Why are you getting away from the surface? Well, that's where the craziness is. That's where the global dynamic system is trying to kill you. The tools for killing you are at the surface. That's going to be the theme of this, right? The way that the global dynamic system, the Earth dynamic system, kills you is that it beats you to death and it cooks you and it pummels you with hailstones and it blows you horizontally for a half a mile. And, that's how the Earth dynamic system kills you. Okay, it can physically kill you, and it can also drown you, and it can starve you, and it can cook you with heat. That's how the Earth dynamic system is going to kill us, kill all of us, is by physically beating us to death, cooking us, starving us, whatever. Lightning strikes. I mean, you can just imagine. So, if you're in an aquatic habitat, you can submerge. Now, I want to call it a vessel. I mean, it is a vessel, right? It's a submarine, is what it is. It doesn't have a propulsion system. It doesn't go anywhere. I mean, it could, but let's say that you don't opt for that option, right? You just want to go up and down. You just want flotation so that you can go up and down. So your habitat, your home, could submerge, and if there's a big ass hurricane coming, and you built your habitat, you know, in the submerged parts of Florida. Why you would do that? Maybe you own the land there, right? Maybe your land that you own went underwater, but it's still technically your land, So you build a floating house, right? There's 20 feet of sea level rise, there's 50 feet of sea level rise, so you build a floating house right above where your old house was. There you go. You can even visit it if you feel like it. So a big ass hurricane is coming in. Now, this is the Earth dynamic system. I've talked about hypercanes and things like that. We can have hurricanes that'll be just whatever. I mean, there's no structure on Earth could survive it. But if your structure is already in the water, plus it can sink a little bit, like maybe just 3, 4 feet, right? Just a little bit. Then the hurricane blows over and you miss it. Uh, and of course, if there's a huge heat wave, you're in the water. So you're getting some buffering effect from the water itself. So that's a second type of non-surface habitat that we could have. Just to summarize quickly, you could have below ground, whether you dig deep and go completely, flush with the surface of the earth, or you dig down a little bit and you build up a little bit and then you pile dirt over like a sod house. That's one. Two is kind of the same thing in the water. Different type of craft, of course. It's going to be made out of what? Fiberglass, metal, something that can survive in the sea with some buoyancy characteristics, which are easily managed with simple motors and pumps. And then the third one that occurred to me, even as I was making this list, is to go the opposite direction. Don't go down into the earth or down into the sea. It's quite conceivable that we could have floating cities. Now, this is really getting into science fiction, right? The floating cities, there it is on the cover of the science fiction magazine, floating cities with flying cars and, the whole rockets going up to the floating city. But I could certainly see where like the elites might want to do that. The elites might just want to get away from us. Oh, and by the way, a lot of this being below the surface also has to do with not just escaping the Earth dynamic system, which is trying to kill you, but also all the people who can't figure that out. The poor people, the wretches, the refugees, and all the diseases and all of the wars they're going to fight, right? The nuclear wars and the fallout and the whole thing. So if you're below the water or you're below the surface of the earth a little bit, then you kind of have a story about how you're going to endure all this. You just batten down the hatches and wait for the refugees to pass on, or wait for the fallout to blow that downwind, or whatever. And if you're out at sea, it's even easier. So there may be a very powerful impetus for the elites who got the money for all this, right? For the elites to kind of figure this out, right? And they caused this problem. They know where it's headed. I know where it's headed. They know where it's headed. Everybody knows where this is headed. If you're paying attention, you know where this is headed. You don't even question it, right? So they're going to have to start thinking about, well, how I got all this money, I got all this influence. How am I going to get away from this problem? Well, yeah, you could dig into the earth, or even better still, go out to sea and have a seaborne habitat that can sink below the surface. If you sink below the surface, even if the refugees have boats and they can go out there, all they can do is look down at you down below the surface of the sea, and maybe you're good for months down there, right? So you escape, you just escape it. And then the other thing is floating cities. So we have some history of this. We have, back at the turn of the last century, dirigibles, blimps originally, which were soft-bodied, lighter than aircraft. And then there was dirigibles, which were rigid body, lighter than aircraft. And what made them lighter than air was that they had gas bladders. So they were like fish in this way. You had gas bladders that allowed them to float, but a fish has a gas bladder to allow it to float in the water. But these floating cities are floating towns, floating villages. I mean, they don't have to be as big as cities. Would have gas bladders filled with buoyant gases. So a traditional one to use is helium, but helium is becoming rare. It's harder to get. So they would probably have to use hydrogen, which is abundant because you can get hydrogen from water doing electrolysis. So hydrogen, though, is extremely flammable. But hey, you can figure this out, right? They can figure this out. Kevlar bladders that can't be punctured? I don't know. Why not? They can figure it out. So with abundant hydrogen, which you can get from seawater, you could float a city community of some sort high up enough. You could actually go high enough. In fact, if it was not just rigid in its construction, but also could resist altitude like aircraft do, right? Commercial aircraft fly at 35,000 feet. This is like twice as high as Mount Everest. You can't get to the top of Mount Everest without drinking, breathing oxygen. And it's the same thing with commercial aircraft. They carry their own atmosphere. They carry their own oxygen supply. So you could have a floating village, city, community, mall, whatever you want to call it, that's made buoyant with hydrogen in some way that it won't explode. And the habitat within that could be completely pressurized. That was the word I was looking for, pressurized. And by the way, when you're cracking water to make hydrogen for your buoyancy, another product you get at the same time, simultaneously, is a waste product, if you want to call it that, is oxygen. So you could have onboard electrolysis apparatus that trails a hose down to water. And so maybe you science fiction-y, right? But this is kind of fun. It's better than some of my other content. Okay, work with me here. You could lower your floating habitat until you're close to the water, suck up a bunch of water, do a bunch of electrolysis, right? Solar panels, all that, and then float back up to the heights. And you've just made hydrogen for your flotation, and you've just created oxygen for your pressurized habitat. And now you're way up here, right? And you think, well, that's not going to save you because we've got jet aircraft and we've got anti-aircraft cannons, and we'll just shoot these rich people out of the sky. No, you won't. No, you won't. You won't have any of those things. Because remember, we're talking about the end of civilization. So, you're not going to have jack. Okay. You're not going to have anything. You're not going to have, even small arms at some point. Once you shoot all the bullets, who's manufacturing bullets for you? Think about that. Once you've shot all the bullets you've got, doing whatever it is you think you're going to do, and you've shot bullets for 20 years doing whatever it takes to survive, and 20 years later, there's no bullets. And who's manufacturing bullets now? Nobody. You got no story. So these people are up at 17,000 feet, 20,000 feet, 30,000 feet. They're above the masses. They're above the warfare. They're above the bullets. They're above the missiles and the tanks and everything else. And they're above the weather because the heat is on the surface. The heat is that's where global heating happens, is on the surface. So they just get up there where there's some stratospheric cooling. That's a thing. Look it up. Stratospheric cooling. Now, they may not want to be in the stratosphere because that's pretty high. But the point is, the heating part of global heating is at the surface because that's where the heat is. The heat doesn't come from the sun. The heat doesn't come from the sun. It doesn't come from the sun. It comes from the surface. That's where the heat is generated, on the surface. And because of the greenhouse effect, it gets trapped at the surface. It doesn't rise, not very quickly. And so there you go. You get above it. And you're also above a lot of the weather. You can be above hurricanes, you can be above tornadoes, you can be above derechos, horizontal winds, you can be above torrential rainstorms, you can just be above it all. So that's 3 types of non-surface habitat. You see the theme here? Not on the surface. Because what's happening on the surface? Refugee crises, you know, massive storms, tornadoes, and hurricanes, plague outbreaks. With all these people dying on the surface, with the warfare and the diseases and the starvation and just general, just being unhealthy because of global heating, and just all the dead bodies that no one's collecting, there's going to be huge disease outbreaks. So if you can stay below the surface, underground, underwater, or above it all, if you can stay off the surface, I got to be very careful with my terminology. If you can stay off the surface is where it's all happening. And the surface isn't very deep. In terms of humans, the surface is like the first, 6 feet, right? If you can be higher than 6 feet, you've already done something. If you can build your house on stilts and there's no way to climb the stilts and you're up there just a little bit, then really you're above the surface. You're already there. You're not very far above the surface, so that probably wouldn't cut it. But if you could be 10, 20 feet off the surface, and there's no way to climb the poles for whatever reason, razor wire or electrified or whatever it is, then you've got a story about how you're not on the surface. You're above the surface. So this is habitat. This is habitat of how we may have to, some of us, who would that be? People with money, right? People with political influence, people who get the government to help them, people who can hire contractors and can hire governments and get the governments to change the law so they can build whatever the fuck they want, right? Whatever they need to. And of course, politics will be off the surface and wealth will be off the surface and they won't be here. They won't be on the surface. They'll be somewhere else. So all of that with somewhat of a distraction, but a necessary distraction as a caveat to what happens when you do have to be on the surface. And that is the topic of today. Life on the surface. What happens? What are you going to do? What are you going to do when you have to be on the surface? So who has to be on the surface? Well, let's imagine that all of these off surface, below the ground, below the water, high in the altitude of the atmosphere, off surface habitats still need infrastructure, still need maintenance, might even need defense forces. Okay. If there are rich enclaves of wealthy elites living below the ground, mostly so, they might have a surface team of security, their own private army, right? Who has to be on the surface. And in the meantime, as we're veering faster and faster into these bizarre science fiction-y dystopian, outcomes, which are not fiction. They're only fiction until they happen. And they're happening. So on the way to that, where everyone says, oh, yeah, you have to live underground now. Oh, you're living at sea? How's that working out? I bet that's pretty cool. Oh, you're living up the atmosphere? Yeah, I heard about that. You can barely see it from down here. How many people are living up there with you? Until we get to that point where this is just common discussion, common knowledge. This is just what you do, right? It's just how you do it. You just don't live on the surface anymore. Until we get to that point, there's going to be a years long, probably decades long, but not centuries long. No. Decades long. Low single digits, okay? Decades long trajectory where we haven't figured out a habitat solution for uninhabitable Earth. We haven't figured that out. We haven't invested in it. We haven't engineered it. I mean, I just did it, but let's say that no one watches my video and they haven't figured it out. We haven't figured it out. So we're still living on the surface. Every year it gets harder. Every year there are more parts of the Earth's surface by percentage that become uninhabitable, and so on. So there's this transition that may take 20 years, 2 decades, 3 decades. I think no more than three, really. Like I said, low single digits. 3 decades, where we're going to be betwixt and between. And that time has started, by the way. That 3 decade window where we're going to have to, for the future, we need to figure out our shit in a big way versus right now where we're like suffering. Okay. That 3 decade window has started. And my wife and I were gearing up, actual gear, okay, for going out into the actual environment on the surface of the earth, which is, in the early days of trying to kill us all. So, what was that conversation like? And what have we already done to do that? And I'm going to walk you through some of my preparations, which I already engage in, to make that possible for me. So, I have some kit here, and this is my usual kit. I mean, this is the stuff I spend my morning trying to find my kit. Where's my hat? Where's my glasses? Where's my sunscreen? Where's my whatever? I find all my stuff and I get all geared up and I go outside. I just mentioned sunscreen, so I should hold this up. So this is a little bottle of sunscreen. SPF 30. Okay, so this is pretty strong sunscreen. Everybody wears sunscreen now, yes, everyone's going to wear sunscreen. Now, sunscreen does not protect you from the heat. It just protects you from UV radiation. But that's going to be really important. At the end of the aerosol masking effect, which will happen when we stop burning high sulfur fossil fuels like coal and really oil, diesel, the end of the aerosol masking effect will bombard the Earth with increasing solar radiation. Not because anything happened with the sun. The sun didn't change. But there's a layer of pollutants that we put there. We didn't do it deliberately. We were just fucking around with fossil fuels, right? But we put it there. There's a layer of pollutants that has the actual effect of blocking some of the incoming sunlight, blocking some of the sunlight. It comes from the sun and it gets reflected back to space. And they're called aerosols. And the effect of blocking the sun and sending it back to space is called the aerosol masking effect. It's well understood. It's hard to measure and it's really super hard to model, but it's known to exist. And the only question about it is how important is it and what's going to happen to us when it goes away, because it will go away when we stop burning fossil fuels. So we may find ourselves in a position after the aerosol masking effect somewhat abates, after we start burning fossil fuels, which is what we have to do, of having to rely increasingly on sunscreen because the intensity of the sunlight hitting the earth will be enhanced, which will, of course, enhance global heating. You have to understand that. The aerosol masking effect is blocking some of the sunlight from reaching the earth. And what did I say 10 minutes ago? That the heating of the earth doesn't happen at the top where the sun is coming in. It happens at the surface where the sun hits the ground and it heats the ground. The sunlight is absorbed and it's energy, conservation of energy. The energy is turned into heat. The heat is at the surface where the light is absorbed. It's a little bit of it's absorbed in the sky, but for the most part, it's absorbed at the surface of the earth. In fact, anything that gets through the clouds and the whatnot hits the ground and is generally absorbed, unless you have a really high albedo surface like ice or something like that that can, again, reflect it back into space. For most parts, plants, asphalt, concrete, rooftops, forests, right? The ocean, the rivers, they're all absorbing this solar radiation. So they get hotter. And when you decrease, getting into double negatives here, when you decrease the aerosol masking effect, meaning you increase insolation, incoming solar radiation. I'll try this again. When you decrease the aerosol masking effect and you increase insolation, the sunlight is the source of the heat. And people think dumb things. They think that burning fossil fuels creates the heat that's heating the planet. No, that's not true at all. If that was true, then you could stop burning fossil fuels tomorrow and the planet would cool down. But that's not what happens. The planet will never cool down. This planet is going to cool down for millions of years because that's not what's heating the planet. Burning the fossil fuels is not heating the planet. Running the air conditioning and pumping the hot air outside is not heating the planet. It's just not. What's heating the planet is the sunlight coming down, striking the surface of the planet, heating the surface. And when the heat tries to radiate back out to space, it can't. Why can't it? Because of the greenhouse effect caused by the what? This greenhouse gases in the atmosphere, primarily CO2. And where does that come from? Us burning fossil fuels. Go back 10 seconds and play that again. Do it right now. Go back at 10, 20 seconds and play that whole thing over again. Play that over and over and over until you figure it out. All right. So when we stop burning fossil fuels, we're going to need more of this because there's going to be more sunlight and therefore more UV radiation. And also we increase the heating of the planet. But that's not going to protect you from heat. Heat is going to come anyway. What's going to protect you from heat? Well, so I have this. It has a hood. I may as well put it on. It has a hood. And this looks like cold weather gear, but it's not. It's too thin to be cold weather gear. It's too thin. It has no insulating qualities at all because it's not supposed to. This is to protect you from sunlight. So it's a little bit like this, only you don't have to apply it. You just put the shirt on. It doesn't wash off. You can go in the water, get this completely wet, and whatever, it still works. And depending on the color you get, it can actually be reflective. It has a little bit of reflective. It's made of like polyester or something, and it has a little bit of a sheen to it. So it's a little bit reflective of the light. But I could definitely see in the future where heat and being in the sun becomes so critical that they actually make these things like with embedded reflective fibers like mylar or whatever, right? Make them really shiny to reflect the sunlight and therefore keep the heat off of you. Well, it can reflect the heat too. If you have hot objects in your environment, like everything, including the atmosphere itself is hot, then reflecting that heat off of you is a good idea. So this kind of gear, I mean, I'm wearing this today. I go outside and I wear this with the hood up, not because I'm cold, but because I'm hot. And it's breathable. It wicks the moisture off of your body, and it covers your face a little bit. Okay, it covers the back of your neck. Okay, all the parts that your beard isn't covering. And my wife and I both have one. Oh, by the way, Marshall, when you're watching this, we ordered a couple more of these, and we have one here for you. This is what it looks like in the package. So this company, this is called North Yard. But if you go on Amazon or some other site, you can find hundreds of companies that do this. These kinds of things, once you have one and you start looking for them, you start seeing them. They're big in construction work. Construction workers wear this kind of stuff. And you think, wow, you'll see them wearing long sleeves and a hood. And you're looking at, what is wrong with that guy? He's got to be cooking. No, he's not. He's trying to fight the heat and the sunlight. And he's wearing long sleeves and a hoodie and the whole thing. And it's protective, it's PPE, personal protective equipment, PPE, personal protective equipment. And it beats this hands down. I just went out for a walk and I came back and I was nice and cool. I didn't have any sense of sunlight on me at all. If you put this on and the sun can still get to your skin, it will heat your skin. It'll bounce off the UV so you won't get a sunburn, but you'll still get hot from the radiation. Now there are versions of sunblock that contain a lot of titanium oxide, white. And when you put them on, it makes you white. And so in theory, that increases your reflectivity. But you don't have to do all that. Plus, you'll miss a part and you won't get the back of your neck and you won't get the top of your nose quite, or it'll wipe off later and then you're all exposed. And you just put on some PPE, right? PPE, put the hood up. And then I wear a hat. This is my day. Then I wear a hat. Again, not to stay warm. I'm not keeping the top of my head warm. I'm keeping the sun off my face, out of my eyes. I can't even go outside these days without wearing a hat of some kind. And it's light colored, so it's somewhat reflective. It's got a mesh in the back so my head can stay cool. And it's PPE, it's personal protective equipment. So now I've covered most of my body, and I can do even better than this. The old style pith helmet, right? The pith helmet that you would put it on, it had a wide brim, and it was full of holes. And you can, people you find them now that have fans in them, to cool your head. So there's even better PPE than this, but this is convenient. And then let's see, what would I do next? Okay, so these are my working sunglasses. I can work with these. The amount of protection, and you're protecting your eyes, your cornea, and your retina. You're protecting your eyes from the sunlight. Is what you're doing. So that doesn't necessarily have anything to do with global heating. But again, when we stop burning fossil fuels, as we must, then the Earth is going to become brighter. Down here on the surface, it will be brighter. The light reflecting off of buildings will be brighter. The heat and the light reflecting off of concrete and asphalt into your face will be brighter and stronger. Why? Again, we're losing the aerosol masking effect when we stop burning fossil fuels. Therefore, more sunlight will come through. It's the same sun. It's the same sunlight. That hasn't changed. It's just that the aerosol masking effect was blocking it. Hence the word masking. It was blocking some of it, reflecting it back to space. But when it's gone, and it will be when we stop burning fossil fuels, then more sunlight will come in. The world will simply get brighter and hotter. Brighter and hotter. It just will. And so you'll be running around wearing sunglasses all the time when you're on the surface. You see where this is headed? Now, these are special. I bring these on because these are actually bifocals. I don't have prescription glasses. I can see really well. I can see well enough to drive, and even do most of my work with my tools. But if I have to do anything close to hand, like reading a tape measure or trying to carefully position something, a screw or a nail into a hole, I'm like, wait a second, that's too close. So these are bifocals. They have bifocals ground right into them. These are glass lenses. They're not plastic. And sorry about that. And they help me to work with precision measurements and things close to hand. If I wasn't wearing those, I would be wearing these, which is what I was wearing just a moment ago when I started this video. These are just magnifiers, right? They're just reading glasses, off the shelf at CVS, $8. But they're not sunglasses. And plus I can't wear them when I'm driving because the magnifiers actually interfere with my distant vision, so I can't wear them when I'm driving. But these I can wear when I'm driving because most of the lens is just a normal lens. There's no magnifier of any kind. There's a small part at the bottom where I could read a tape measure, and that's bifocals. These are sunglasses bifocals, like $17 online, right? No big deal. Wire rims, I like the wire rims. So PPE, personal protective equipment, necessary. Why? Because I'm on the surface. See, I'm on the surface. I'm gearing up. So what else do I do? I'll show this. Oh, by the way, I'll show these. These are safety glasses. I guess you wouldn't call them safety goggles because goggles go over glasses. These are safety glasses. And every tool manufacturer, DeWalt, Ryobi, Milwaukee, they all make a safety glass brand. They make gloves, a bunch of other PPE for people who work with their hands. So you can wear these, and these are nice. They're wrap around. They're UV protection. The plastic, these are plastic lenses. These plastic lenses offer some eye protection. They wrap around. You can see how they wrap around, right? So you won't get broken glass blowing into your eyes, and a nail falls off the end of the hammer and springs into the air and hits you. It may stick you in your cheek, but it won't stick in your eye. So these also work really well. Now, I don't wear these because these are not bifocals. So I can wear them, and I wear them when I'm driving. But my PPE for my personal need is these bifocals. Well, I could probably look these up on Amazon and tell you exactly what they cost. But they're bifocal sunglasses. So you see what's happening here? See what's happening here? I'm disappearing for work on the surface. Other things I have. Okay. This is also PPE, personal protective equipment. Oh, this is for sound. Uh, this is for sound. I almost said something about smart glasses. I'm going to get to upgrade pathways in a moment. This is PPE for your ears. This is auditory protection. So these are not noise canceling or any funny stuff like that. They're just earmuffs. So they have a foam inside and they go over the ear. They're called over the ear. They don't go in the ear. I think sticking things in your ear is a bad idea. So this is, so when I'm working with power tools and nail guns and all this kind of stuff, really noisy, and table saws and all this kind of stuff, I don't like it. It's stressful. I hate it. It didn't used to bother me. But these days I just can't tolerate it anymore. So probably because I'm wearing protection, and I've suddenly noticed how loud it is. If I'm out there and I pick up a saw and I cut something, I was like, God damn it, I don't have my earmuffs on. So I go drop everything, stop, can't work. Go find my auditory protection. Now these are special. These are Bluetooth enabled. You see the controls over here on the right. I can control my phone. I can control my phone for taking calls, which is important because my hands are full and I have a tool belt on. I don't even know where my phone is. I left it on the charger. It's 20 feet away. So I can take a call. I get called all the time. 99% of the time it's my wife, but 99% of the time it's important. So I can take a call. I can be right in the middle of doing something. I can take a call and have a conversation on my PPE via my phone, via Bluetooth. I can also play music. I can listen to podcasts and whatever else. So while I'm busy, I work all day. And if I worked all day and I didn't multitask, then I wouldn't know what the fuck's going on in the world. I probably wouldn't even know what climate change was, right? But since I can multitask, um, then I have this going on. So this is life above ground. Your smartphone, your network connection, your ability to connect immediately to people, your ability to communicate. You might have a boom microphone here. You've got your protective gear over your head. These are protecting your ears from noise and also heat. Just so you know, I mean, the head is exposed to a lot of heat. So here I am. I'm getting ready for my day. This is me. This is me on the surface of the earth. This is how I spend my entire day. My entire day, just like this, just like you see me. And everything about this serves a purpose. It just does. I just explained it to you. I guess I'm an early adopter, right? I'm just early into this game. I'm gearing up for surface work in a future of uninhabitable Earth. This is it. This is not it. This is how it starts out. I'm about to get to what it's going to be. Now, let's see. What else can I put into this? My day. I think that's probably enough. Yeah. Almost forgot. My smartwatch. So my smartwatch is connected to my phone via Bluetooth. Again, I can take calls. If I don't want to push the button, I can check my smartwatch and see who's calling. That's my wife. So I better take that call. Click. Okay. So I can screen calls, but it's a health monitor. It takes my pulse. It tells me how many steps I've taken during the day. And in the future, I think even current smartwatches, this one's like 7 years old. This is like generation 1. They're up to like generation 5 now. The current smartwatches can take your blood oxygen level. I think they can even take your blood pressure. I don't know how they do that. But I can tell you the time. I almost never use it for that. I almost never check it to see what time it is. Once in a while. Most of the time, though, I'm doing other things with my smartwatch. It's like I got this up here, and I got this here, and I got my phone, and I'm networked and connected all the time. Now, I said I was going to get to the enhancements to all these things. Let's just start. Everything I just showed you is my daily life. This is all a start, but there's an entire industry waiting to be invented for PPE personal protective equipment for uninhabitable Earth. So let me invent that. I'm an inventor. I'm a clever motherfucker. So let me just explain what that looks like. I already mentioned some of it. Uh, more reflective materials to radiate out even more heat, and maybe even wicking like Gore-Tex or something. So a combination of it keeps you cool by radiating heat away from you, and also keeps you dry by wicking the surface moisture off your body. Now, the purpose of surface moisture on your body is to keep you cool, right? We cool via sweating. And this thing will get saturated with sweat at some point, but it does keep me cool because it's still evaporating off. The cloth cools my body. But I still have to come in at some point if I get too hot. But take this a step further. Take this a step further. You have a small backpack, and it can be, the size of a dictionary, right? About that big, maybe that high, and 3-4 inches thick, but it's a backpack. But it's built into the clothing, or it can be attached to the clothing real easily with hoses. And its purpose is to keep you cool. Now, here's how it would do that. If someone wants to run with this idea and create this line of clothing, yeah, please do. I'll be a beta tester. What it does is it has portable cold, which we call ice, but it doesn't have to be water ice. It can be just these, ice blocks, or even chemical ice. There are chemical ices. Of course, they're consumable. But if you really wanted intense cold right now, you could put in one of these chemical ice packs, set it off, and all of a sudden you've got minus 50 degrees Fahrenheit in your backpack. And how long does that last? Does it last 6-8 hours? Well, then you're good. At the end of the day, you throw it away. Or you can use just a block of ice. And when it melts, you have to put a new block of ice in. These could be completely enclosed. So you just take the old one out, put it in a freezer, and put the new one in, and you could have 6 or 8 of these things at the work site for each employee. And as they are working outside, whatever they're doing, construction work, or like I am, just a duffer in the backyard, gardening, whatever it is you're doing, you just have enough of these ice packs around so that during the day, you just slip a new one in. And what is it doing? It's being used as a sink, as a destination for your body heat. Now, how does it do that? Now, in theory, you only have to have an ice pack on your back. And by cooling your back, and this is sort of your core, right? This is your central body. By cooling your core, you can kind of cool the rest of you. And that's a start. And that would be a good start. You can make that backpack tomorrow. I could go down to the hardware store and get some Igloo ice packs, strap them together with duct tape. Find an old backpack just for the straps, right? Just for the straps, the backpack straps, and strap that thing to my back. I could do that this afternoon. It's a really great idea. I could do that this afternoon and just wear it on my back. And through conductance, just being on my back, of course, it'd be probably uncomfortable. You might have to get used to it. But if you're really hot, it might feel really good, right? So just by conductance, being in contact with your skin through this very thin fabric, it could cool your core and keep your body cool. But let's take that a step further. It's a machine. It's completely self-contained. And it might even be sewn into the garment, but let's say it's a backpack. And it has a pump in it, and it has fluids that circulate around that cold source. It's not a cold source, it's a heat sink, but you have to understand physics. You have some fluid that flows around this heat sink. And then you run the tubing in the garment, or even something you're wearing, okay? Or could just be, maybe it's just a harness you put on before you put on your garment. It's like your underwear, right? And it just consists of tubes. It's just tubes. It doesn't cover your skin. It doesn't provide any privacy. You're not dressed. It's just a bunch of tubes you put on. You just put on all these tubes. And it focuses the heat extraction on places that are going to generate a lot of heat, right? So the upper parts of your legs, your groin, your gut, right? And of course, your head would probably be a part that goes over your head that just fits like a tight-fitting shell over your head. A little bit like a neoprene suit, but without the neoprene. It's just tubes. And they're held in place by some sort of a mesh, right? A flexible mesh. So like this material, but just a mesh, a loose mesh. And so you put your tube suit on, and then you put on your other garments, and then you put on your cold backpack, your heat sink, and then there's maybe two tubes that come out of the backpack, and you just plug it in to your undergarment. Now, I'm pretty sure this stuff exists. I'm describing all this, and someone out there at YouTube land is saying, "Wait, what are you talking about? You can buy that off the shelf right now." Okay, fine, fine, fine. Maybe I should buy one, but I haven't. I've never even looked for it. I should probably stop right now, go to Amazon. Jeff Bezos, tell me about these, cooling suits. If it doesn't exist, there's an industry here. I promise you, there's an absolute industry, guaranteed, absolutely industry. You're going to make $1 billion. I should do this. I just stop this video right now. I should delete this video, go patent a bunch of shit, and start inventing, because that's what I am. I'm an inventor. Did you notice? Yeah. So you have a modular heat sink backpack, small pump, a fluid that flows through it, probably just water, and a suit that you put on before you put anything else on. So that's the heat. So this could be reflective. That's a start. And then, it's important because you got to keep the UV radiation off you. I mean, this is not going to come anywhere close. Sorry, this is done. This era is already done. I'll probably never buy another bottle of sunscreen, and you shouldn't either, because this is done. This doesn't cut it. So you could enhance this with a cooling suit, and this itself could be enhanced by being more reflective. What else could we do? So, I kind of already mentioned the hat. I mean, the hat is important. It needs to be highly reflective. It needs to, really cover your body, but you can kind of see that it can't have a wide brim, because then I couldn't do this. But what if this was built into the hat? Okay, and I've seen those products on the market. You can buy them at Home Depot. So that's already out there. But that's what you would need to protect your head from the solar radiation and a little part of your body. Okay, but you've got this. You've got your cooling suit on underneath. You put on your helmet. It's got the earmuffs. And then you need something over your eyes. So this is sufficient. One direction this all could go is something really like a spacesuit, like I've mentioned in the past, where you have your gear, you put it on, and then the last thing you do is you grab your helmet, just like an astronaut, right? You grab your helmet and you put or maybe more like Iron Man, right? Something really cool. So you put your helmet on, it closes around your face, and it does all this locking and all this stuff, plugs into your cooling system, and then you have your helmet on. What's the helmet doing? Well, it's got cooling in it. It's got reflective surfaces. Maybe it's got fans to blow air over your head to keep you cool. It's got, the built-in communications. Of course, it's got a visor, so you don't really need to wear these unless, once again, you're, an old fart and you have to have reading glasses. But you can wear those under the helmet visor, right? And then the enhancement to these, and these are okay. I mean, for what they do, they're fine. But the enhancement to I'm going to take this off. The enhancement to these is you could have smart glasses. So I already mentioned, okay, I've got my phone over here, very important to be networked. And then I've got my headset that allows me to communicate. I've got my smartwatch. I've got my other things, and it's all connected to through Bluetooth to my cell phone. But there's no information content from these glasses. So if I wanted information, and you kind of have to understand where all this is headed. The other thing I have on are gloves. Probably, I wear gloves all the time when I'm working because I don't want to get splinters and cuts and things like that, because it happens all the time. I wear fingerless gloves so I can still use my fingertips for the fine work, like working with screws and nails and things, and punching buttons on my cell phone. But probably in the future, you're not going to want your hands exposed. You're going to be touching things that are just searing hot because global heating, okay? You're going to be touching things that are searing hot. And if you trip and you fall and you land on the ground and you're picking yourself up, you're touching the ground, right? And people already today in heat waves are getting severe burns, severe enough to go to the hospital just from falling down, touching the ground, the surface. You get burns. So you may have to wear gloves even when you're doing construction work and you really want your fingers and you need the dexterity. So, we may have to have special gloves that have really special tactile fingertips, or where nearly the whole finger is covered, or the whole finger is covered, but you can like push a button and the fingers reveal, right? I don't know, something like that, so that you don't burn your hands. And if that's the case, then punching buttons on your cell phone or even answering a call by punching a button on your headset, that might actually not be possible. So you're going to want your helmet to provide more of this functionality. So like some artificial intelligence, some voice recognition, some Alexa, Google Home type of stuff where you can talk to your helmet. And you're in the helmet, so you don't have to shout or anything, and there's no extraneous noises coming in from other machinery or people, and you're just talking to your helmet. You're saying, "Okay, helmet, answer call. Helmet, place call. Show me my YouTube playlist. Whatever you want to do, you're in your helmet. You never take it off, because if you took it off, you'd be breathing hot air, and you don't want to do that." Well, that's something else I didn't mention. Breathing. No, I didn't mention it because I don't wear this in my day-to-day life, but those of us that survive to see the nasty future coming our way. It's on its way. It's being delivered by Amazon Prime. Our nasty future being delivered by Amazon Prime. You're going to want one of these. Now, this is what this is this is a welding respirator for welding. Welding, the environment you create when you're welding metals is unbelievably toxic. You can breathe it for a few minutes and you'll be okay. But if you're sitting there for welding for an hour, or if you're a professional welder, you weld all day, it's just going to kill you. So again, there's a helmet, there's a mask, and there's a visor, and all this stuff. This is all PPE. And then under the mask, you wear one of these. This is a respirator. I think this is actually a HEPA respirator. This is a HEPA high efficiency particle attenuation. But I can tell you, when I wear this when I'm welding, I don't have any problems at all. Nothing, zero. And these little tiny filters can be replaced. It's small like this because the mask fits fairly close on your face. So to be able to wear a respirator and then put the welding mask on, the respirator has to be really, really compact and tight. But I found this really comfortable, and this is a great design. It really fits. It has to. Okay, it has to. It makes a really close, tight fit over your face, unlike a dust mask or something like that, which aren't HEPA, by the way. They can't be. HEPA requires that you have a tight seal around your face, and then the HEPA filters make sense. You're supposed to shave your face, but for welding purposes, it's okay. So, all right, you see that? See how that works? So, in the future, I hope you can hear me. You're supposed to be able to hear through these things, like you're supposed to be able to talk on the phone. In the future, when we are in a dangerous environment, we're going to have to wear respiration above ground. We're just going to have to do that. So you're going to see things like this. Already, the PPE associated with avoiding pathogens, right? The PPE associated with pathogens is already getting pretty stylish. You see these women in Asia out on the town. They got their beautiful dress on and their high heels, which the girls call. I just learned this recently. I get to be crude now because the girls invented it. They're called "fuck me" heels. Okay, so the girls are walking around in their heels, and and they got their jewelry and their glamour, and they're wearing this thing, right? Because it's Asia, and that's what they do. It's completely normalized. And of course, Americans wouldn't do that. Americans would die inhaling their own blood as their lungs hemorrhage rather than wear this. Why? I don't know. Americans are retarded. Okay, this is kind of ugly, but you can imagine. I mean, you can buy something that looks nice. Have nice patterns printed on them, right? Buy a bunch of them that match your clothing. Anyway, so I don't wear this every day. I could. And when I'm welding, I wear it all day. It's really comfortable. This one's the elastic is kind of blown out. I need to do an upgrade, but I've replaced the plastic, the elastic many times. Um, but imagine that someone. I mean, this is industrial equipment. They put no thought or effort into it. I mean, there's a little bit of thought. It's kind of nice, really, if you look at it. They put very little thought into this. But if you got a clothing brand involved in making this kind of thing, it would look fantastic, and it would be PPE, and it would be HEPA, and it would be all certified HEPA and the whole thing, right? And then there'd be a little microphone embedded in it, so you could talk on your phone and all this kind of stuff. And uh, if the LED lights go around in a circle, it'd just be amazing, right? If you got a clothing brand making this kind of stuff. This is Herman Miller. They're a welding company. They sell welding rods, welding equipment, and then of course they sell this kind of stuff. Herman Miller. They'll sell you the mask, the hood that comes down so you don't blow your eyes out, and then they'll sell you this right along with it. Herman Miller. I tried to buy another one of these during the pandemic, couldn't find it. Words to the wise. So respirator. Why do you wear a respirator during global heating at the end of the world? Well, everything is on fucking fire, right? Everything's on fire. Everything's on fire right now in California. There are fires all around me. And if you want to look, understand why that's a problem, just look up deleterious effects of breathing smoke. It's bad. It'll mess with you. The particles, some of them are pretty big, and even your nose and your larynx can filter them out. But some of them are really fine, and they get all the way, they're so fine. The particles get all the way into your lungs, embed in the alveoli in your lungs, and then they can even cross the cell barrier into your bloodstream. This is crazy, right? Now the smoke is not just in your lungs making you cough and your eyes are watering, whatever else. It's in your blood, and then it can cause inflammation. All parts of the body are sensitive to these particles, and so you can get inflammation in any organs. And the one we care about the most probably is things like your lungs, your heart, and your brain. And chronic exposure to wildland smoke, so forest fires, long-term exposure, meaning more than a few days. Chronic exposure to forest fire smoke can cause brain inflammation that is sufficient to diminish your capacity. Look it up. So, what does global heating do? It heats everything up. And what does that do? It dries everything out. And what does that do? Well, it kills the plants, makes them susceptible to, wait for it, fire. So, everything is on fucking fire, as I like to say. And so you're going to have to wear this if you are, where again? Above the surface. You're on the surface of the earth. You're not below the surface. You're not below the sea. You're not way up in the atmosphere where none of this stuff is happening. You're at the surface of the earth. You're going to have to wear this. You're going to have to wear this. You're going to have to wear this. In addition to this and the hat and the glasses and the gloves you're going to have to wear this. You're going to have to wear this all the time. Now, if you're an American, you won't. In which case, if you're an American, you become retarded. I mean, you may have been retarded already, or you would have been wearing this to start with. But if you're not retarded, you're going to become retarded because of brain inflammation, swelling in your brain, and you could have a stroke and you could die. Of course, if you have a stroke and you die, you're not retarded anymore. Problem solved, I guess. But anyway, if you want to avoid retardation, you're going to have to wear a mask above ground. And the mask might even bring in fresh air, right? So not only are you breathing a certain amount of filtered air, there might even be very subtle, very small injections of fresh oxygen. If you're going to be above the surface, not underground, not under the sea, if you're going to be breathing unfiltered air, you're going to have to breathe it through this, basically bring your own filter. There might be a cooling system associated with this. So you're not breathing in hot air. Part of the cooling system that goes over your arms and your legs and your groin and your torso and over your head, there may be another cooling system just for the air intake. So there's little tubules in these filters, or just behind them. Maybe the filters are replaceable. So just behind these is tubules that are not replaceable. And so that's filtering the air through like the inverse of a radiator. The air comes in hot. It goes past the tubes, cools off, and then you inhale it. Because the air is too fucking hot. Because it's global heating, right? And there's all this smoke because everything's on fucking fire. The air is too hot to breathe because it is. And so to protect your lungs from both the particulates and the searing heat, which is a thing, believe me, then you're going to have one of these with HEPA filters and a cooling system. Quick, someone patent it, manufacture it. We're ready. We're there. We're there. So I wanted to mention that, like, I don't wear this all day. But hey, give it a couple of years, right? What else could I say? Yeah, so you end up wearing a suit, probably with a helmet, probably with a certain amount of built-in filtration and air conditioning, right? Cooling. You've got an ice pack or something similar on your back. An ice pack is sufficient, and the ice pack is being used to cool your body with this tube suit that you put on. And you're able to move. There's flexibility. You're able to do whatever you need to do. You're protected from high UV by either your glasses or by the visor on the mask on the helmet, right? And you're kind of enclosed. And now you're ready for the surface. Now you can go up on the surface. So you're living below ground. That's where your home is. You're not wearing any of this stuff when you're home. And that's where your food prep is, your sleeping quarters, your food storage. And then sometimes you have to go up on the surface. Why? I don't know. Maybe the food supply is still on the surface. Maybe you're a construction worker. Maybe you're a farm worker. Hey, future village life, 90% of us, more, 99% are going to be farm workers, right? Where's the food coming from? You're growing it. And where are you growing it? On the surface of the earth. Oh, well, that's going to be a problem because it's fucking hot, right? So you can live below ground. You can live below the surface of the sea. And you can even live up in some massive atmospheric super village. But the truth is that your food is still being grown probably on the surface. That's where the soil is. That's where the water is. That's where the everything is. That's where the animals are. That's where the food processing probably is. And people will say, greenhouses with air conditioning. Yeah, you could do it that way. Sure, maybe greenhouses with air conditioning, in which case maybe you don't have to have all this stuff on, right? But who builds and maintains the air conditioning? Who builds and maintains the greenhouse? Someone's got to go out there. Some fool's going to have to go out there and fix that shit when it breaks. And here we are, right back to this, right? So this is the future. No, really, it's not the future. Actually, this is not the future. That's a lie. I just lied to you. This is the present. This is the present. Not everybody knows that. But they're going to slowly figure it out. They're going to slowly figure this shit out. And with the surface being uninhabitable, you're going to have to live below ground. Most people will not be living at sea. Some will. Most people will not be living in the sky. A very few will. Trust me, they will do that. A very few will actually do that. Most people, you and I, will be living below ground or at very much at the surface below ground. You don't have to be 200 feet down. You don't have to be living in a rocket silo. You don't have to be living like troglodytes. You just have to be a little bit below ground. You can even be half below ground. Basements, right? Basements are below ground. What if what we mostly do? What if what we mostly do is we build houses, all of them with basements, full basements or nearly full, and that's where we sleep. You sleep below ground because that's where it's coolest. And so you don't have to run as much air conditioning and as much heating really in the winter. Not that you're going to be heating in the winter. Okay, get over that. You don't have to do as much temperature control when you're living below ground. And where do you spend a good part of your time? Sleeping, eating, right? Bathing. So what if all of that living structure is actually below ground? That's just called a basement. And then you have some of it above ground. Maybe you have the the kitchen or the dining facilities or the entertainment or the office where you have your computer and all your stuff, right? That could be above ground. And you're really stingy with your below ground part. That's where you sleep. Maybe that's where you hang out when you don't have to be above ground. So, we'll have more houses built with basements at the very least. But of course, the next part of that is you build the basement, you make the rooms, you make the kitchen, and you don't even bother with the above ground part. You just don't do it because you can't be up there because it's too hot. You just can't do it. Or you do it and then you don't put windows in it. You pile dirt all over it. Maybe a few windows. Maybe you have skylights, right, that just look straight up. And the rest of it, you just pile the dirt on. So you have a below ground basement and you've got an above ground part that you then pile dirt on, right? And that's how you survive. That's how people survive. Wow. I can absolutely see that day coming. That day is here. That we're already there. People just don't know it. They're paying the electric bills and they're wondering how much more insulation can they cram in their attic, and they're coping, right? They're coping. But hey, at some point they're going to stop coping because coping ain't going to cut it. Coping ain't going to work. It's not going to work. People already are suffering power outages, like associated with fires and hurricanes and similar disasters, which are happening practically every week here in the U.S. Hundreds of thousands of people lose power. Well, if your sleeping quarters are below ground, you kind of don't even notice until you go above ground. You try to use the kitchen, and it's so hot you can't even cook, and you're eating out of you're eating Cheerios out of a bowl, right, with milk that you can store in the refrigerator. So if you have solar power and you have batteries, then you can have a refrigerator. But you can do that. You can figure that part out. So living below ground, because electricity is not that reliable at some point. Like now, you just live below ground. Today we call it a basement because we're making a distinction between normal habitation, which is above ground, and then this thing that some people have, why I don't know, called a basement. It'll be the exact opposite. We'll turn that completely around. You'll have a basement. It'll be nice. It'll be insulated. It'll be cool. It'll be dry. It'll be everything. And then when you suit up and you get all this shit going on, and your cooling suit and your helmet and your visor and your smart glasses and your smartphone and all this other kind of stuff, and you go through a full 15-point safety check, and someone's making sure everything's working, and it's like being an astronaut going on an extravehicular, right? And if someone's checking all your systems and systems check out, and you got a robot talking in your ear, systems check out fine. You are prepared to go to the surface. Well, then you go to the surface, and what are you doing up there? I don't know. Tending the crops. If you're lucky, right? If you're lucky, you got that part figured out. And then when you're done with that, it's like, God damn it. And you're back down underground, right? Who is ready for that? You're not ready for that. Are you kidding me? You kidding me? Yeah, you'll be voting for Donald Trump before you'll put up with that shit. Donald Trump, he says climate change is a hoax. I like the sound of that. Yeah. Yeah, you like the sound of that? He's reinventing physics, is he? The man has godlike powers, I guess. No, he doesn't have godlike powers. He's a fucking moron. It's not a hoax. And I mean, you're here, right? You're not a moron. You're listening to me. You don't have to listen to this shit. You could go somewhere and watch cat videos, right? Have a nice day. Just have a nice day. You could have a nice day. You don't have to be here. You could be somewhere else having a nice day, but you're here. So here's to you. Where are you going to live? And how are you going to survive above ground? Because it's coming. It's coming. The day when going above ground becomes a very important personal decision. I got to go above ground. Honey, you don't have to do that today. Yeah, I got to go. Can't you just do it later? Like after the sun sets? Can't you do it like 2:00 in the morning? No, it just doesn't cool down enough. It doesn't really matter. And then it's dark and I can't see. I got to go above ground. It's not that important. We can get by. Another couple of days, and the temperature's supposed to drop by 5 degrees. It won't be 150. It'll be 140 outside. And just wait a couple of days. No, I got to go above ground. All right, all right, all right. But let me help you get ready. Come. Okay, put this on. Okay, there's a tear. Like, let me sew this up. Okay, now I feel better. And can you put on 2 layers of protective clothing? It is so hot. Put on 2 layers of cooling. You can wear mine. Okay, they're stretchy. Put on 2. And then this helmet, I don't know. We need a new helmet because the cooling system doesn't work very well. And you remember how it was last time you were up there? You came down, you were all dizzy, sweaty, your face was red. And that was 2 hours. You need a new helmet. I keep telling you to get a new helmet. Get one with better cooling systems and integrated. And whatever you do, don't take it off. And don't breathe the air like you did last time when you were then laid up for 3 days. When your lungs healed, don't breathe the air. If you're going to go up there, I mean, it's a bad idea. I don't approve of this. But if you have to go up there, don't breathe the air. Promise me. Promise me you won't breathe the air this time. Promise me. Promise me. We're fucked. We fucked up. We fucked up. We fucked up so bad. We fucked up so bad. So all this comes out of a lighthearted discussion with my wife this morning as we geared up to go outside and breathe the fucking air. Okay. And we're just ahead of the curve. That's all. We're just ahead of the curve. We're just ahead of the curve. Why? Science. That's why. Science. We understand. I understand. I can tell you exactly where this is headed. Science. No fiction. Science. Not science fiction. Science. We're fucked. Building below ground. Covering your house with dirt. Not breathing the air. Special equipment. PPE. You have to wear it. And anybody that has to work on the surface, their survival depends on their PPE. It's like working outside of a spaceship. And I call them spacesuits, but it's not a spacesuit. It's just I came up with a term today. HES. We need a new term. It's not a spacesuit because you're not fighting the vacuum of space. It's not a spacesuit. It's an HES. Hazardous environment suit. Hazardous environment suit. And it's protecting you against the hazards in the environment. This environment, the surface of the earth. And what are the hazards again? Excessive heat, excessive light, so UV, okay, burning your retinas. Hot air, breathing polluted air. 2 different things. We can filter the pollutants out, particulates anyway, with this. It doesn't manage ozone, by the way, which can still burn your lungs. Particulates from smoke. From where's the smoke coming from? Because the world is on fucking fire, okay? Wow. Wow. Science. It's science, baby. Science and technology. Technology will save us. I guess that's what they tell me. Something wrong with my browser. I hope this stream turned out okay because it seems like it's really lagging. But anyway, it is what it is. Ending stream. Get ready. She's a coming.